You're in the bathroom at a party, music thumping through the walls, voices layered on top of voices. You've been there for an hour and you're already done. Not anxious, not overwhelmed, just empty, like you're watching everyone have a good time through glass. So you lock yourself in here, just for 5 minutes, just to breathe. You hate big groups, but you also hate being alone too long. You thought you were broken, like something didn't wire right, like everyone else got a manual on how to be a person and yours got lost in the mail. Introverts recharge alone. Extroverts recharge with people. You recharge with one person, maybe two, in the right conversation, at the right depth. But too many people, draining. Too much alone time, lonely. You exist in the gap between the labels everyone else seems to fit into so easily, and the gap has no name. Until now. If this is you, you're not an introvert. You're not an extrovert. You're an Otrovert. And living between those two worlds has created something in you that nobody talks about. This video is about what that something is, and why you were never broken. You can have a deep 2-hour conversation with one friend and leave feeling alive, energized, like you just plugged into something real. That same night, you go to a party with 15 people. Small talk, surface-level laughs, everyone having a great time. You're exhausted in 20 minutes. People see that and think you're shy or anxious or that you don't like people. But that's not it. You love people. You just don't love crowds. You'd rather have coffee with one person for 3 hours than drinks with 10 people for 30 minutes. You'd rather text one friend all night than scroll through a group chat. You'd rather skip the birthday party and meet them for lunch the next day. That's not social anxiety. That's selectivity.
But here's where it gets confusing. You spend 3 days alone, working, reading, doing your own thing. And on day 3, something shifts. The silence that felt peaceful starts to feel heavy. The solitude that recharged you starts to drain you. You're not an introvert. Introverts could do this for weeks. So you reach out, you call someone, you make plans, and the moment you're with them, really with them, not performing, not small talking, you feel human again. But if they bring someone else, if it turns into a group, that human feeling evaporates. You're too social to be an introvert, too drained by groups to be an extrovert. You need people, but only in doses, only in depth, only in ways that most people don't understand. Psychologists are starting to call this Otroversion, the need for connection that only activates in one-on-one or very small settings. Not performing extroversion, not hiding as an introvert, something entirely different. And if you're an Otrovert, your entire life has been shaped by a pattern nobody gave you language for. You don't just prefer deep conversation, you need it. Surface-level interaction doesn't just bore you, it actively drains you. When someone says we should all hang out, your stomach drops. Not because you don't like them, because the idea of performing social for a group sounds like work. But when that same person says, "Want to grab coffee? Just us?" you say yes immediately. You're the person who leaves the party early, not because you're tired, because you're understimulated. Too many voices, too much noise, not enough substance. Introverts leave because they're overstimulated. You leave because you're bored and exhausted at the same time. You have 1 or 2 people you can talk to for hours without feeling drained. Everyone else, 30 minutes max before you need to recharge. Your closest friendships aren't just close, they're deep, intense, the kind where you don't need to explain yourself because they already know. But most of your friendships, surface level. Not because you don't care, because going deeper with too many people would destroy you. You're incredible in one-on-one meetings, job interviews, deep conversations, therapy, anywhere that rewards presence and depth. But networking events, team projects, team building exercises, you'd rather be anywhere else. People think you're selectively social. They're right, but not in the way they think. You're surviving based on what your nervous system can handle. That's not snobbery. That's biology.
Psychologists believe Otroversion might be tied to how your brain processes social information. Specifically, how much cognitive load different types of interaction create. One-on-one conversation, you track one person, one emotional state, one thread of thought. Your brain can go deep because it's not splitting attention. Group conversation, you're tracking 5, 8, 12 people, reading the room, managing tone, monitoring who's been silent too long, who's dominating, where the energy is going. Your brain is working overtime just to keep up. And here's the part nobody explains. That tracking isn't optional. You're not choosing to monitor the room. Your brain is doing it automatically, and it's exhausting. Introverts get overstimulated by the noise. Extroverts get energized by it. Otroverts get exhausted by the cognitive load of managing too many social threads at once. That's not preference, that's processing capacity. And you've been living your entire life in a world designed for people who process social information differently than you do. Now let's be honest about what this has cost you, because not all of this is strength. You've probably been called distant, aloof, hard to get to know. People think you don't want to be close, but that's not true. You want closeness desperately. You just can't build it in groups. So you've learned to perform. You show up to the group hangouts, you laugh at the right times, you contribute just enough to not seem weird. Psychologists call this emotional masking, performing social fluency while absorbing a cost the room never sees. And then you go home and don't speak to anyone for 2 days because that 30 minutes of small talk cost you more energy than most people spend in a week. That's not introversion, that's compensation. You've probably lost friendships because you couldn't keep up with group dynamics. Someone invites you to a party, you say no. They stop inviting you. Not because they don't like you, because they think you don't like them. But you do. You just can't do crowds. And here's the part that nobody tells you. Most people don't understand the difference between I don't want to be around people and I don't want to be around this many people. So when you try to explain it, you sound picky or difficult or antisocial. You're not antisocial, you're selectively social, and there's a difference. The cost of being an Otrovert is that your needs are invisible. People see you thriving in one-on-one settings and assume you're fine. They don't see the 2-day recovery period after a group dinner. They see you skipping events and assume you're flaky. They don't see that showing up would have cost you more than they could ever understand. So you've learned to carry it quietly, to not explain, to let people think what they think. Because explaining makes it worse. Because I can't handle groups sounds like weakness to people who recharge in crowds.
But here's what you carry that nobody else has. You know what it means to be truly present with someone. Not just physically there, but actually there, locked in, undistracted. Most people don't know how to do that anymore. They're half listening while scrolling, half present while thinking about the next thing. You can't do shallow, so you go deep. And in a world of surface-level everything, that's rare. You know what real friendship feels like. Not the kind where you see someone twice a year at group events. The kind where silence is comfortable, where you don't have to perform. You've built relationships that matter. Not 100 acquaintances, a few people who actually know you. You know how to be alone without being lonely. Most people can't sit in silence without reaching for their phone, their TV, their noise. You can, for a while, until you need connection again. That capacity to toggle between solitude and connection, most people don't have that. They're stuck in one mode. You can do both. And here's the thing that nobody tells you. You see what most people miss. You notice when someone's faking, when the conversation is just noise, when the connection isn't real. Because you can't survive on fake connection. You need the real thing. So you've learned to tell the difference. That's not judgment, that's discernment. You know what it costs to show up, to be present, to go deep. Most people don't. They think socializing is easy.
For them, maybe it is. For you, it's work. Beautiful, meaningful, necessary work. But work. And you've learned to spend your energy carefully, not because you're stingy, because you know what it costs. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. The world is built for extroverts and introverts. It's built for people who recharge in crowds or people who recharge alone. You recharge in connection, real connection, the kind that only happens when the room gets quiet and the number of people gets small. So if something in this landed, pay attention to that feeling. That's not loneliness, that's recognition. Your nervous system recognizing itself in a story someone finally named. You were never too picky. You were never too much. You were never broken for needing what you need. You were just an Otrovert in a world that kept asking you to be something else. And now you know. There's a name. There's a pattern. There's a reason. You're not alone in this. If this hit different, subscribe. Now tell me, what's one moment when you felt drained by a group but alive in a one-on-one conversation? The specific feeling, the contrast. Leave it in the comments, because the people who understand are right here, and your experience matters.